Okay, I'd like to call to order this special meeting of the Delray Oaks City Council. Can I have roll call, please?
Councilmember Uy,
Present.
Councilmember Havlick is absent. Councilmember Shirley,
Here.
Councilmember Berger,
Here.
Mayor Donaldson.
Here, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next is public comment. General public comment must deal with matters subject to the jurisdiction of the city and the council that are not on the agenda. Anyone wishing to address the city council on matters not appearing on the agenda may do so now. There'll be a 3-minute time limit. Public comment is now open. Okay, seeing none, I'll move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items that any council member would like to pull from consent? Okay, seeing none. Oh, yes,
So, Mr. Mayor, just the first consent agenda item.
okay,
Please. Thank you.
got it. I'll take it out to the public. Any items that the public would like to pull from consent? Okay, seeing none, we'll go back to item 4A, which is approve amendment for the Delray Park ADA Sidewalk Improvement Project. And I'll give it to Councilmember Uli.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you everyone for being here, and for this opportunity for me to just not like disapproving. I'm approving this item, but I just have a question. Based on my understanding. So, maybe, Mr. Mayor, if I would just like to ask or have the staff or to explain uh what went wrong in the on the I think there is a report, like environmental report that, I'm just wondering what was it in there that made it not eligible.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the project was eligible and there's nothing wrong with the environmental report. There was just a misunderstanding between our staff and county staff on timing of the documentation. And so we
right.
we executed the contract and did the work before the environmental documentation was finalized. And so that was the problem. It was just a timing issue.
Okay. Okay.
Because of federal regulations, that now means that
Okay.
we can't use the money for that project.
Anymore. Okay. Okay then. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's all that I need clarification. Thank you. Thank you, John. Yeah.
All right, you're welcome. So with that, do I have a motion to, excuse me, approve consent?
Move to approve.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. So we'll move on to new business, which is review the proposed budget for fiscal year 2026-27. With that, I'll turn it over to the city manager.
Okay, and I'm going to turn it over to Elizabeth again because
Okay.
she does a much better job than I do.
Good evening. And thank you for this opportunity to present the proposed budget for fiscal year 2026-2027. This budget has been developed to support the Delray Oaks organization's goal while maintaining fiscal responsibility and ensuring that the effective use of public resources. We will be presenting tonight the highlights of the 2026-2027 proposed budget. We are going to start with a general fund summary. For the proposed budget, the estimated revenue is increasing 4.5%, 227,500, 5.3 million in total. For the total operating budget, the expenditures is 5.5, increase 77,000, 1.4 million. Next slide, please. Okay, the second slide is the general fund operating revenue. As you can see, our top three revenue sources is 70.7%, the airport police services, sales tax, and property taxes. And the sales tax is conservatively budgeted with an increase of 1.5 um, due to the economy. What is the next slide? Oh, go back, please. Sorry. I'm just trying to figure out. And the property taxes were increased by 2%, and all these are detailed in your packet. And so for those top three, we're at 70.7%. Next slide, please. The next slide is the general fund operating expenditures, and this lists the departmental expenditure of 5.5%. And on the right side, you can see the chart and the percent by department. The major increase in this budget are there's a 1.4 increase, and the liability and insurance, health and vision, dental. There's only employee salary step increases that are due. There's no COLA on this budget. And this budget also includes reduction in training, travel, and some contracts. Next, please. This budget is shown by department, and the box numbers are the proposed numbers, the 5.5, and you can see the increase and decrease and the percentage that they increase with a total of 1.4%. Next slide. This slide these are the contributions to nonprofit organizations, and the numbers did not change from 2025. We kept the same number, and the 15,000 is just the rounded number in the budget. This is the estimated fund balance. After the audit on June 30, 2025, we ended up with 3.6 million. And the estimated fund balance at 6/30/2026, that is 2.9 million. And if we expended everything that we budgeted for 2026 and we receive all the revenues we budgeted, then it's 2.9. For the 2026 budget, we have the 5.3 estimated revenue, the interfund transfers, this is all CIP, and the expenditure of 5.5. We're going to end up at 2.6 estimated. 1.6 of that budget, the fund balance, is unassigned for economic uncertainties. Okay, next slide, please. And these are the fiscal year 2026-2027 funded capital project. As you can see, we only have 4, and this is 78,000. And these are going to be funded. They are going to be expended from general fund balance. Next, please. And we added this capital project in detail. From the right, these are all the project CIP with their assigned numbers. And each column, these are the budgeted amount that were approved from 2024, 2026, and what was expended in 2025, and the actuals for April. So the estimated carryover to fiscal year 2026-2027 is 414,000 plus the proposed budget of 78,000. So when we close the books and if we only have expenses of 97,000, then we will have 492,290 budget, 78,000 plus the estimated carryover. And our recommendation is to review the budget for fiscal year 2026-27 proposed budget.
Thanks, Beth. So, the risk of sounding like a broken record. Revenues are tight. Our revenue streams are very narrow. And expenditures, really cost drivers that are outside of our control are responsible for our increases in our uh, expenditures primarily. We do have salary increases that factor in uh, outside of COLA. We have step increases and things like that. But health insurance increased 13% this year from current year to next year. uh, our liability insurance premiums have increased 30%, right? 30%. Yeah, 30%. Those are significant cost drivers that are outside of our control, that are just cost of doing business in California. And those are likely to continue to increase year over year going forward. So those are pressures that are becoming real and becoming real issues for us to address going forward. So what you see here is a budget that is recommending that we rely a little bit on general fund balance to make up the gap of basically $187,000. If you go back and look at previous years, there's been other years. Last year we budgeted a deficit of 87,000. The year before that, 157,000. So there are line items in the budget typically that are things that, with limited staffing resources and just changing priorities, there are things that are budgeted for that don't come to fruition. There are contracted services that we don't utilize because we don't do the project, or we just don't need the level that we budgeted for. But we have the budget there because we think we're going to need it, or we anticipate we might need it. So it's better to have the budget there and be able to use it than to not. So in those years, in 2025, through management of the budget and projects and everything, we got back into alignment. So we finished the year actually with a little bit of a surplus. I'm anticipating that this year we should also have that same reversal of the budgeting, where we budgeted a deficit, but we're going to actually bring it back in. So that's not a promise for this coming year, because this is a slightly bigger gap that we're trying to make up. And we've already gone through, we've taken not necessarily a machete approach, but maybe a Bowie knife approach to trimming the budget and trimming the fat, which I would not really classify as fat, but we went through and reduced where we felt comfortable reducing without impacting services. So if you all want, we can go back and we can try to trim off some more and bring us down. But now we're talking about a scalpel and trying to figure out where to make the cuts without killing the patient. And so that's a little bit more difficult exercise. My recommendation would be, let's move forward with the budget as presented, and then mid-year we can make adjustments if necessary. If we don't feel like we're getting back into alignment and we need to make cuts for the second half of the year, we can do that. Fortunately, we are in a position where we have reserves and we have general fund balance to utilize. So I don't think we need to be too reactionary with our budget going forward. And I think that there's some things that we can do throughout the year, and we're all really good at managing our costs and managing our budget. The staff does a great job. They're very in tune with what's going in and what's coming in, what's going out throughout the year. So I'm comfortable with the budget the way it's presented. I know there's been some questions about some other components of the budget. So rather than jumping into those, why don't we just be available for questions, Mayor?
Sounds good. I'll start on the left here with the vice mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Donaldson. I don't have any questions. As we've always sounded off, we appreciate the staff's hard work, Beth, the company's hard work. And, kind of hoping and praying that our city manager's right and we can tighten things up just enough to be. I like to see projects, but if it means that we save a bit of money by not having manager fees or whatever type of consulting fees, that's great. Hopefully we can kind of erase this deficit. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Uy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oh, it's loud. Okay, yeah. So thank you, John and Beth, for drafting our budget. And I know I'm always like intimidated with those numbers with the budget, but I know that we have to do it because we need to have really like allocation for funds, and especially if we want to be really like sustainable. So my only one question for anyone would be, I'm just curious, is our Delray Oaks budget kind of like uh, is it stable enough since we have a fund balance, or is it operatingly sustainable? So that's just my, and then whatever your response, uh, uh, I hope I would have some relief to that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what we'll find out as we go forward. I don't know where the economy's going. And as I've said over and over and over again to anybody who's listening, that our revenue streams are very narrow and they can be susceptible to downturns in the economy. And but right now, when we meet with our sales tax, fortunately, property taxes are going up because homes have been selling, and every time a home sells, our property taxes go up. TOT's been doing great, and sales tax has been holding steady, which is we're doing moderately better than a lot of our regional partners, but just a little bit. But we're holding pretty rock steady on our sales tax, which in the greater context of California is good. We're doing better than most others. And part of that is just the nature of what our sales tax comes from. But going forward, yeah, if we continue on the path that we're on and we don't find new revenue sources, and these outside forces on our expenditures continue, it's going to become more and more difficult to manage our budget without making service level cuts. So, but we're in the same boat as everyone else. If you're watching the news, you see everyone else. We're actually a little bit behind the curve on everyone else, which is a good thing because other cities around us have been making cuts for the last 2 or 3 years. So they've been feeling this pressure for several years. We haven't gotten there as quickly as they have. But if you watch, what was it last year? I think the city of Monterey had a $5 million budget gap. Is that right? And now this year they've got a $10 million budget gap. And so, and everybody's dealing with that. The city of Sacramento's got a $66 million budget gap. And so you're hearing it time after time after time on the news. So right now, everybody's got a structural imbalance in their budget. That's just the nature of the economy as people tighten up their spending because of, inflationary pressures and high gas prices and things like that. So everybody's feeling the pinch. So that's a long way of saying I don't know for sure, but right now it's not looking bad, but it's not looking great either. So, but because we have the reserves and we have the fund balance that we have, we are in a position to weather downturns better than we've ever been in the past. So,
Okay, that's good. That's a big relief. Thank you, John, for the response. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Councilmember Shirley.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yes, I have been sitting in lots of budget meetings where there have been structural deficits, and I did this morning with MST. That's going to be 11 million short this year, but they have reserves, and so I'm grateful that we do as well. I think we're in a pretty good position, and I do trust that our staff and works to really be economical with our funds, and so I have no concerns about that. I do know, as you mentioned in the staff report, that the only way we're going to dig ourselves out of this is with additional revenue. And so I think the place where we can get revenue more quickly, I know we're moving forward, hopefully with four-door development. I'm anxious for that, but I think we really need to focus on the Work Memorial parcel with Garden Center. I know in our last draft budget, you had 10,000 in for a consultant, and then that was removed. So I guess my first question is, if we can talk about what's our game plan for trying to get something in there quickly, not, thoughtfully, but, are we going to put money towards that so that we can make that happen maybe sooner rather than later so that we can start realizing some of the revenue benefits from having something there that is making money for us?
yeah. So, first to the question of the money for the consultant. So that's that was intended for long-term strategy and I guess somebody in to not just talk about the Garden Center and Work Memorial, but other opportunities potentially with city-owned properties like the Public Works Corporation yard and things like that. Um, so being able to talk about the future and things like that is kind of a nice to have. So the reason I took that out of the budget is because that's a way I could cut a fairly substantial amount of money without cutting current service levels.
Right.
And so it doesn't mean that we're not going to do it or that we can't do it. That's a discussion that we should have. But then we have to talk about, okay, so we do want to continue down this path and we want to do this and we want to hire somebody. So what does that look like? And then how do we fund it? So it's not off the table. It's just we need to come up with a different strategy for funding it than through operations. That was my only strategy with that. So yeah, and then what do we do down there? I'm open. We have a lot of interest from a lot of different parties and a lot, not necessarily direct interest, but we've heard from a lot of people who are interested. So I think there's probably a two-phase thing. We'll probably look for something interim, short term, to get somebody in there and get some generate some revenue from it while we're talking about bigger long-term plans.
Okay.
Would be my recommendation.
Okay, yeah. And, we haven't, as a council, really set priorities, but personally, I would see that as a priority because, again, the closer we can get to having revenue come in, I think would be really important. The other thing I wanted to talk about in our capital improvement table, we have all these projects that we are not doing this year. I would like to draw the council's attention to the potential for a project that I think would be imminent and needs to be done sooner rather than later, and that's creating parking down in our courtyard. With the frog pond that will be opening, I think from what I understand, it's not clear whether they're going to still allow parking along 218 if Caltrans will allow that. I think for the benefit of our residents, and also I think for the benefit of the city hall parking lot, I feel like we could use some overflow parking. And while Granite is down there, I'd really like to see us move forward with trying to get parking down in the courtyard. Because I know when we have, council meetings or any kind of meeting that's well attended, this is, before Carlton was blocked off, people would have to park up on Carlton, they'd have to park up on Work, and then they'd have to cross 218 to get to City Hall. I think it'd be really nice if we could have parking down in the courtyard. So that's not mentioned as a project, but I wanted to put that out there to see if the council members find that a valuable thing to spend money on and to do it sooner rather than later. And I would hope that it would be done in conjunction with the Monterey Peninsula Regional Park District, because it's their responsibility to have parking for the frog pond, but I think it also benefits the city too. So I'd like to see a collaboration, and I'd like to sort of direct staff to work on that because it'd be a lot more expensive if we had to call a construction company back to do that. And, while Fortag is finishing up, hopefully in fall, it would be really nice to have that done. So I wanted to kind of throw that out there to see how other council members thought about that. I think I'll keep going with my comments. John, I know I sent you questions ahead of time. In terms of our Section 115 trust, can you speak to that? That's something that we use to save money for our unfunded liabilities for CalPERS. I don't know if we're on track for that. Do we need to think about adding to that this year? Because I don't see that we are doing that this year.
No, and we haven't for several years. So that's a big question. It's kind of it's a nice to have. It's not it's a rainy day fund. It's another form of a reserve for a potential cost that could come. depending on who you talk to, how likely is that to come? I mean, that's debatable. But it's good to have. Um, so the city council back in 2019 uh, passed a resolution to actively start funding that at $150,000 a year, and until we got to $1 million. And then 8 months later, COVID happened
Mm.
and threw everything. So we did fund 180 or $150,000, and then the world turned upside down, and we weren't sure where things were going to go economically and with the city's finances. And so we didn't pay for a few years. And then as we came out of the pandemic and we had some ARPA money and things like that, we did contribute a little bit more. I think another 200,000.
Yeah, because I feel like I remember
Yeah.
contributing within my time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and now with the earnings on that, we're about up to 400,000. So
Okay.
we're 40% of the way to our
Okay.
goal. We haven't revisited what that goal even means anymore. Is $1 million enough? Is it too much? So probably next fiscal year, that's, I'm not prepared to answer that right now, but we
Yeah,
can come
that's
back
fine.
to the budget committee, and that's a conversation we can have and explore whether or not we, and then, and then do we have it in our budget wherewithal to
Right.
meet that? Yeah.
Right. It may not be the highest priority, but
Right.
I'd like to make sure we address it at some point.
Yeah. And John, would you like to comment towards kind of relatively speaking with other jurisdictions, what kind of shape we're in with our contributions?
Well, I mean, without knowing off the top of my head what other jurisdictions are doing necessarily, I'd have to research that. But it's all across the board. Everybody establishes uh, what kind of percentage they want to meet. We do the same thing with our liability insurance and what kind of threshold do we want to have in terms of safety net. So I'd have to look at that, but I know, a lot of other jurisdictions like Pacific Grove, this becomes a perennial conversation for them because they don't budget for this and they never have. And so they have had years where they've had to make PERS payments and things and they haven't had the reserves. So then they have to make cuts in order to make that. So that's what we're hedging against, is not being in that boat, but
Right.
also not impacting current services in order to potentially pay out things for the future. So that's
Thank
where
you.
we have to.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Let's see. The funds for South Boundary Road, I know had been historically in an escrow account. I know that Monterey passed it at their council meeting to move that into, I'm assuming, LAIF or some other interest-bearing account. Do we know where we're at with that?
Yeah, we're working with City of Monterey on that. Yeah, but it'll be moved into another escrow account that's interest bearing. We've already moved the escrow account that we have solely control of. We did that a few years ago, and
Okay.
yeah.
So we'll be starting to make interest on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good to know. In terms of our reserves for, when I think about our replacement reserves, it's for police vehicles, technology, and what else? I feel like there was one more.
Can you show the CIP?
Yeah. Okay. So, so for this next year, so we have if I just look at vehicle replacement, so we have 135,000 total for vehicle replacement.
And that's not just that's all vehicles in the
Okay,
city.
that's what I was.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's what I was going to ask. So, okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, and some of that will be spent because we're going to be replacing one of the patrol cars this year.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, so yeah, within the budget, it's just good to see the totals. So I appreciate you getting that, Elizabeth. Thank you. Let's see. All right. I think The only other thing I'll say is that, again, as I'm sitting through these budget meetings, and I went to a neighborhood meeting in Monterey and hearing Monterey talk about their structural budget deficit and what has caused that, you know, and really a lot of it is not planning for those future infrastructure, repairs that you need, or just the upkeep of your city. And one of my concerns is that we don't, within our budget, and I know we don't have the space for it, but again, I think this is something we need to think about, is that we don't have any money that we set aside for capital projects specifically. And again, we do for the vehicles, technology, which is great. But I would like us to think about, again, putting some money aside, or we've got a fund balance, figure out how much of our fund balance is going to be kept just to sort of deal with, capital in the, projects in the future. I mean, we're lucky to be getting Ford Tag, and it's a brand new trail, but at some point we're going to need to fix something on it. And I just want to make sure that we're planning ahead for those expenses. I think if we can have that foresight now, I think that'll pay off for us in the future. I don't want to end up like these other cities that have all this infrastructure that they can't take care of.
Yeah, so technically we do have a capital reserve. That's what the Capital Fund 301 is. And so in the capital plan, you all have allocated funding to projects that are for future years, just because we don't have the capacity to get them done in 1 year. And so that money that you see is unassigned really should be captured, and we'll make the adjustment. We just didn't this year because we have Rosita hanging out there. And so we thought, why put all that effort into cleaning up the accounting when we may just be putting it all toward Rosita. But yeah, so funds that were allocated by the city council to projects that have yet to be budgeted, that should all be captured in fund balance in that fund. So at least then it's reserved and protected and not disappearing in the general fund
Yeah.
balance. Yeah. So you're right. It should be accounted for differently. We just haven't gotten around to fixing that.
Okay. So we will do that in the future.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. As soon as once we figure out what we're doing with Rosita. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's good. All right. I think that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and your question reference to the parking,
Yeah.
I think it's probably best that we allow the staff to speak with the Parks District staff and see where we are before we're able to take that on. And I know the city manager has spoken with their general manager. There's still issues that are out there. And until I think we get something from the staff, I would rather allow them to do that work so then we can discuss it and maybe do that at a budget meeting.
Do you think it's a good idea to have parking in the courtyard?
I would have to see what the staff comes up with before I could really give a strong opinion either way on it.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
if I may, so
Yeah.
so definitely for me, for my thoughts, it seems like it's a good idea to have a parking spot. I know that we need to assess first everything, and because Delray Oaks is becoming popular with our events, and we always end up like running out of parking,
flag.
and that's why I know we don't have enough money, but if we can put it in one of our projects in our capital improvement plan, that would be great. So I know we have to really prioritize everything, but that's really like a very good project that we can have that would benefit not only our residents but even our visitors here who would visit us in our city hall. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
it. Yeah.
And Vice Mayor, do you have any questions, comments regarding that or?
I obviously we can see the pros. I'd like to see the cons. I like to see ideas. I would endorse something that makes sense, but I like to get to the experts on it before I can make my opinion. I understand the safety aspect, convenience. you can be introduce a handicap aspect to it. So there's a lot of that factors there. One thing I'm a little concerned about, and Councilmember Shirley brought it up, essentially is as the Fortac project uh, uh, weathers and chips and bumps and scratches in it, we're going to have to weather the burden of any type of financial hardship that comes up because of that. And there's no money that's been allotted by AMC for
No,
we don't see any extra really. Direct revenue might with Safeway a little bit, but it's not gonna be a whole lot of money. Unless we, of course, we have some sort of business that caters to trail. It's a little concerning. You just have to show that.
okay. Thank you for that. Okay, I'll take it out to the public. Are there any public comments regarding this item?
Yeah, Gary Krieger, Quindell Avenue. Couple things. You beat your dead horse about narrow revenue streams. I'll beat mine about vacancies. I understand the whole vacancy tax. There's issues there, but anything we could do to lean on the Roscoe's and try to get someone back into the pet thing sooner than later. You know, it's just public pressure, shaming, whatever works. But you know, that's empty revenue. We're just leaving on the table there. I mean, when it's empty, that's revenue we're just leaving on the table. And anything we could do to try to get something in there, because that's probably going to be something that generates tax. That's not going to be a grocery store. So whatever they're doing, it's going to generate tax. And right now, it's generating nothing. So just beat that again. Whatever we can do to, you know, to try and encourage them to move that along. I agree with Councilman Shirley about, it'd be nice to get something in the garden center. I agree that I like your approach. Let's get something in now and maybe look for a longer term plan. But certainly there's a ton of potential there. Again, I just make the pitch that there's a lot of smart people in Delray Oaks, and if we had when we have the strategic planning meeting, we could do it on a day that's maybe going to get more people here and really publicize it. There's a lot of smart business people here in Delray Oaks. I mean, I know a lot of them, and if we could get them here and get some ideas flowing, who knows? There's probably something we haven't even thought of yet, or so would encourage us to really push on that, try to so we can come up with what ideas maybe can float up. And your Councilman Shirley's right about the tail. Mayor, you and I know about that in the military, right? They'd always give us stuff and then wouldn't pay for the tail, and that's really what always gets you. So the more we can, as we can, keep an eye on that, because certainly that is the long-term problem, whether it's the trail or whatever. It's that's always what gets you. So that's what I got, Rob. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other public comments?
Hi, I'm Alice Green on Saucedo Avenue. A question, I'm not clear, the issue of the maintenance of the Forte Trail was brought up. And I thought they were supposed to take care of that maintenance. So the city is responsible. People brought that up at the time when this was first being proposed and said this could be an issue. And there was a lot of poo-pooing that went on, and that's too bad. So I guess, anyway, that answers my question.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council. Are there any other comments, questions from the council? Any additional from city manager or Beth? You have anything else that you needed to add?
That's it.
You're good.
I'm
Okay.
good.
All of my questions, I had spoke with the city manager prior, and he's a self-proclaimed budget nerd, and I will tell you that he's really good at it. I went through this, I've been through this budget so many times, line by line, and he has identified those things where we can make cuts with no impact on the services that we provide. And like I said, we're blessed. He does a really good job with this budget. And I think it's probably the most transparent budget in the county. City manager and I were talking about it. We've looked at this thing, what, 3 finance committee meetings and 2 council meetings? Yeah, so 6 meetings total. We've been through this budget, so very thorough. And as the city manager mentioned, a lot of these expenses are beyond our control, things like liability, insurance, the medical insurance, payroll will always increase. So those things are always going to be with us. And of course, we're always looking for more revenue streams. And yeah, the garden center, absolutely. City manager mentioned that there are organizations out there that have shown interest. And we're taking a hard look at it to see viability. And once we get to the point where a potential occupant of that area makes sense and it's viable, absolutely we'll bring it to the council and for discussion and that public input. I want to thank the city manager and the staff for all your hard work. This is, like I said, you've done a great job and I really do appreciate it. So with that, I'll close this item, and our next item is an announcement that the next regular meeting will be on June 23rd at 6 p.m. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you all for coming.